Good morning and welcome to the studio above the clouds. I'm Serendipity Sellers, serendipitysellers.com. We are going to do one of the upcoming paint nights for the studio. I want to do one of the paint events, and it is painting an owl start to finish. And so that's what we're going to do. This is the original painting that we're working from. So this is the original one. Just a real simple owl. Gives you a lot of chances to do different colors, make it kind of match up with your decor. This is a version that was painted riffing off of the original. And so that gives you an idea of kind of what we're going for. We've got the original, and then we've got a riff on the original here. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And I'm just going to get started from the very beginning and do this start to finish. So let me put these out here so that I can see them, and then I'll adjust you all so you can see the canvas that I'm working on really well. And then we'll just get started, and I'll kind of talk you through how I break this down and how we'll break this down for a paint event. The paint event's really good for advanced or beginners, great for beginners. Because again, I'm going to show you how I kind of break this down. And I'm going to start moving this around now, so prepare yourself. I've got tons of supplies here because I like mixed media. These are all mixed media, and so this gives us lots of options for the various different. The tea is not my supply. The big thing is going to be not to rinse my brush in my tea, because boy, have I done that before. But that gives you an idea kind of what we're looking at in terms of the supplies that I have kind of spread out here, just so I can grab what I need. And then I have more over on the table as well. And they're the kind of things that are available here to anyone who comes to a painting event, so that you can do mixed media and kind of choose what you want to work with. All right, let me set you up here and get you focused on the canvas. There we go. So it's a little canvas. You're looking at the same size as this guy, as you can see, which is a little bit bigger than the original. The original is a smaller painting. So we're starting with something smaller, and then I'm translating it up to something that's a little bit larger. Let me set these up so that I can see them as reference points as we go. Get you kind of situated here. You can see I was doing some pottery because I have this is all terracotta from doing pottery, and I just figured I'd leave it down and work on this surface. All right, you'll have a couple of shadows here, but I don't think it's going to be too bad. All right, and let's get started. So, good old pencil. I'm not really sure how I ended up with this guy. Oh, that one doesn't have any. I need to put more lead in that one. There we go. All right, so just a pencil, mechanical pencil. I've got others around here too. And the first thing I'm going to do is just sketch out where I want the owl to be and some of the big objects, so that I don't paint completely over it. I don't care if I get some paint into it, because we are going to start with what's in the background and then work our way forward. And if you've watched any of these, you've heard me say that before. So we're going to start in the background, work our way forward. But the first thing we want to do is draw in what these things look like. And a great way to kind of start with that, if you're a little tentative about it, is break your object down into just real basic geometric figures. So, if we look at this dude, let me pull him down here so you can kind of see him. We can go circle, oval. These things are big ovals here. We just draw a little bit. The tail will just be another oval. Then these guys. So that's really all we're going to do, is just real basic geometric shapes. We're not going to worry about the details at first, because you can get lost in that, particularly if you're a little tentative about it. You're like, oh, I don't draw, I don't paint. That's okay. You just break it down into the bits and pieces. It's just like having a big project, a big task to do, and you just break it down into little workable components so that you can, so that you can achieve your goal. And we're going to do the same thing with this painting. We're just going to break it down into little components so that you feel comfortable with completing it. So let's just go ahead, and I'm going to set him back over there so I can see him, because I can't really have him here and show you all what's going on. So I'm just going to kind of decide where I want the owl's head to sit. I'm going to put it right here. And I'm not going to worry too much. I'm just going to do a circle. See, nothing crazy. It's just literally a circle. It's a little bit dim, I recognize. I'll try to draw a little darker, because I'm also not real worried about that, because we're going to paint over it. I'm just not real, I'm not going to get real worried about any of this, because the worry is what's going to disrupt your creativity and disrupt the flow of what you're creating. If you get worried or if you get nervous about what it's going to look like, just kind of go with the flow. So let's do another. I'm going to do the oval for the body. So we're kind of an elongated circle. So there we go. Elongated. So there. And then the darker part will be here. There we go. So we've got the body. And this isn't necessarily at this stage how I would draw these, but I think this is a really good way, again, if you're kind of tentative about the whole thing, to break it down. All right. So then we've got the wings. Forgot the word for that for a second. That was fun. What's the thing they use to fly with? It's called a wing. So let's do the wings again. Just oval. And then I want the wings to go a little bit further, so I'm just going to pull a little bit down here, and that's where the second layer of the wings will go. Bow. So then we want to get the tail. Tail's actually going to end up going off the canvas in this case, which is fine. Okay, there's the tail. We need a little bit. So if this starts way up here, let's get just a little lumpy there so that we can see that he has another wing. And then we're going to do some feet. He needs the feet. And so for the feet, all I'm going to do is do an oval and an oval and then an oval. Do I want this one to? No, it's a little bit funky. We'll do an oval there. There we go. And that's really all we need. That's all we need to have showing. So that's a great start for him. Let's go ahead and decide if we would like to where the eyes are going to go. So right about halfway down the head-ish is where they usually go. So an eye and an eye. Yep, I'm just doing circles. I know. Crazy. The snoz. Not really a snoz, but the beak. That's a triangle. Basically like a funky diamond. Funky Cole Medina. Funky diamond. So I got that. So if you notice this, oh gosh, and what is the kind? Lots of different owls have this, but this was a specific owl that I got to meet personally. I actually have a picture of it that I posted along with these on my Facebook. But this is a specific kind of owl, and obviously a take on it, an artistic take. But I want to do these off the head here. And so we're going to go ahead and add that. And again, we're just going to do it by drawing just real basic shapes. And I'm going to take a funky oval. I'm going to start at the same place here. How long is that one? Good enough. Funky oval. There we go. Funky oval. Okay, that is not a bad start. All right. We'll go ahead and do the branch she's standing on. Or she, doesn't really matter. Just have a tendency to say he, branchy, goes here. We'll take it off this side. We'll make this a little thinner, because one of the things I liked in the original that I did not, because I did paint the other one, it's not really finished, the knockoff, we'll call it the knockoff. because my language is not coming to me well today. That's not really the word that I wanted, but we'll call it that. I like, there we go, that's a good bottom. So if you look at this one, that's the remake, you know, it does need lots of detail on the wood still, but there's nothing down here. And in the original, there's water and some mountains, and I like the sense of depth that gave. I like the sense of place and the sense of depth. So I want that or something like that here, and I don't love that I kind of forgot to do it on this one. So we're going to go ahead and draw that in so we know where that is. So down here, we'll just decide, oh, I think the water will go right about there. Water, water, water. And then above the water, we'll do some mountains. Now, the one thing to remember is we either, look at this, need to continue this over here, or I need to change what this looks like. So I can do two different things. If I want to continue that sense of depth over here, I can keep bringing this over, or, and what I think I want to do is I'm actually going to have, there's the, there we go. That is the new tree. Because I don't want to do that over there. I just wanted this on this one side. So I'm going to get rid of that over there and make this turn into the larger tree. And all of this is really nothing right now, because it's all part of that larger tree. And you see, we're not getting real concerned about little stuff right now. We're not letting it stop us. We're not getting into detail. We're just kind of moving on. And I do want to go ahead and put the other, again, just for depth, just to give additional visual interest and to balance the painting nicely. I do want to give the other branch up at the top, because I like that one. And so let's go ahead and branchy branch. There we go, branchy branch. And then we'll go decide this one comes over this way. Branchy, 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 branch, branchy, branchy, branch. There we go. So that's going into a tree. It's a little weird. That's okay. And then we'll have a little stick come off here. And we'll we'll do some little extra interesting things happening here. There we go. Just lines just to make some extra branches on that one. And I think we're good. That's really all I wanted to do with the pencil. You could do a lot. I mean, you could do all of the pre-stuff with the pencil if you wanted to, but I just kind of wanted to lay that out so I could see in general what I was going to work with. And now I've got some choices to make about kind of where I want to go next with this. The style I want to do for this, the first thing I'm going to do before doing the background, because first thing we're going to do paint-wise is the sky. We're going to paint the sky, and then that'll be nice and painted, and then we can work our way out from that. But before I do that on this particular one, just because of the way I want it to look, I'm actually going to whip out some markers and do some additional work here real quick. And I haven't even made any decisions on what color this owl is going to be. I have no idea what color this owl is going to be at this time. So let's decide right now together what we're doing. We're gonna make those choices as a team. Actually, I wish we were a team. I wish you could give me some input. But I'm just gonna kind of go gadget owl here. I'm gonna put this down. I actually don't want that one yet. Let's see, for Owly Owl, I guess I could do that. I'm gonna do this guy. This is just a Sharpie fine point. It's been smushed a good bit because I use it all the time. because I use Sharpies on pretty much everything I do. So I'm now going to commit to the shape of this owl a bit more. So now we're going from, okay, just blobbish shapes to, all right, I'm actually putting the outline down and I'm putting it down in Sharpie. So I'm going to commit a little bit more. If you're feeling a little tentative, you might do some more detail work with your pencil. I wouldn't worry about it too much if I were you, because we're going to paint on top of this as well. And I don't know, it's just my experience that it all kind of works out in the end on things like this. So let's go ahead and we're not going to complete the circle. We're going to join it with the body. And this is not the chunkiest owl I've ever seen. In fact, I think I want him to be a little bigger. So there we go. A little bigger because he was getting a little thin. He was looking thin. There we go. We got that. We got that. Make that even bigger because he's a big owl. Let's go ahead. Yep. Okay. And let me think about this. I want what that is now is giving me a nice feather look. Feather-ish. What this is going to do is help whenever I paint the background that this is still going to pop through really nicely, which is why I'm doing this. I just want it to come through really nicely whenever I paint the background. All right, I want this to do something a little bit more like this in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and shape it. Now I have to repeat that, which is terrifying. Here we go. Let's see if I can make that happen again. What did I do there? I went down and out in Beverly Hills. Ooh, I went in a little bit. That's all right. Not all things are symmetrical in nature. All right. So that gives me at least kind of an outline there. Let's go ahead. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do this. Go ahead and do these guys. And they don't really have to be a whole lot different. There we go. I'm not going to worry about his face right now because we won't paint over that. Put that down. Grab the dark brown. Okay. And let's see, what color do I want the mountains to be? We'll go green. We'll go green. Okay, I'll do a little bit more here. There we go. Just for giggles. And blue. Oh, that blue. Weak sauce. It's okay. Going ahead and filling this one in some just because I can. It was not planned, I'll tell you that right now. I just kind of decided to go ahead and do some. I obviously need to throw out this Sharpie and put it on the list of largely out Sharpies. Okay. And then I didn't do up here yet, so let's go ahead and do it. wild shapes. And then that goes the rest of the way there. Okay. And that gives us everything kind of outlined. So now we're going to start actually putting the paint down and start coloring. And this is where you decide what media you're going to use. This guy, this background, I love this background, is mica powder and Mod Podge. So that's what this background is. Really kind of glumped, for lack of a better term. I'm sure there are better terms. Glumped on there with a brush. And this is probably close to what I'll do this time because I do really like this background. I think it looks really good. This background is also, this is watercolor with some mica powder and Mod Podge. And the Mod Podge gives it a, you can't feel it, but it gives it a cool texture. It makes it very resilient. This is not gonna damage easily, and it gives it some shine to it. So I really like that part of it. But there's two different options. When there's lots of different options, these are just two different options on what that background can look like. But there are lots of different options. I think I also used some of this old tempera cakes as well on this one. So let's go ahead and put this aside. And you could also use acrylics for the background. I've got acrylics around. In fact, I have several over here so that I can use them. It just kind of depends on what colors you're trying to achieve, how much texture you want it to have, and what you're going for, and what media you want to work with. That's the other thing, is it's really kind of what you want to work with. So let's do truly mixed here. And I'm going to take a little bit of, I left my watercolor palette downstairs, which is fine. I'm going to use a little bit of this tempera. And then I'm going to use the Mod Podge and the mica powder because they're my two favorite things really to paint with. But I want a little bit of this tempera just to get some color. And I'm just going to use this is an old paintbrush and this tempera. And you're going to see there's not a lot of technique going on here in the way that I do this. Really just kind of getting essentially some watercolor down. I'm putting it right on top of what I just painted. I'm making sure I get the edges. It's really watery. That's okay, given what I'm trying to do with right now. I mean, depending on what you wanted to do with it, this could be really bad, but with what I'm going for, this is all fine. And so I'm just going to use this. And again, whoops, you'd see pretty quickly that I am not real worried about going over top of the forms that are already here. And that's why we used the Sharpie and went ahead, or why I used the Sharpie. Again, you don't have to. And went ahead and put it down was so that I can just brush right over top of this and not worry about it. Okay, so boop, boop, boop. I just kind of want all of this going in the same direction, but really that doesn't matter. So there, we got that now. All right, so now what I'm going to do is pull out, I've already got some mica powder, or not mica powder, some Mod Podge here from something I was working on earlier. This is the Gloss Luster, which means it shines. It's got a lot of shine to it. I also have and use a lot the matte. And in fact, this is done largely, this is gloss in here. There's a couple of things that are gloss in here, but there's a lot of this guy that was done with matte to begin with. And the background's all done. This is all matte. That's gloss. And so I use different kinds to get different effects. I've got the gloss right here, so I'm just going to use gloss on this and not really worry about it. but you can use the different kinds to kind of get that different effect. You can tell I'm not real worried about whether this dries right now, because I covered it pretty nicely, and we're going to go right on top of it with more. Let me get a drink of my tea here real quick. Yummy tea. All right, so let's get some blues. I'm going to get some blues that I want for the sky here. And I'm going to keep this pretty light. So I'm getting a pure blue mica. And I don't want it to just be one, to give it a little bit more depth. Ooh, there, is that the one I want? Yes, I think it is. This is glitter deep blue. So I'm going to grab it. It's another one. So we'll put it back there for use. And then this is the one I was actually working. Yeah, there we go. Intensive sparkle blue. I'm kind of actually hold back on that. Intensive sparkle blue is going to get used for the water. So I'm going to hold that one back. But I'm going to grab some cobalt. And then you can make some decisions like, do you want this to look a little bit darker? And I do kind of want it to look a little bit darker. So I'm going to grab a little silver gray to go in here as well, because I want this to look a little bit more like maybe it's nighttime or evening instead. Okay, so we've got those. So now basically we can start putting them on here. And the way I'm going to do this in this case is actually just kind of straight from their containers. No, let me not do it straight from their containers. I'll mess it up. I'm going to put it around in my little palette here. Glitter deep blue, pure blue, cobalt blue. Dude, come on. Feast or famine, feast or famine. There we go, cobalt blue. And of course, the good old silver gray. Good old silver gray. Come on, buddy. Yeah, there we go. Good enough. All right. So now I'm just going to get some, this over a little so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. There we go. I'm going to get some of this Mod Podge, which is glue, on my brush. And now I'm just going to stick it in some of the, some of the mica. And this isn't real, you just kind of blop it, and blop it. I'm going to get some more of a different color, and I'm going to blop it. And then some more of a different color, and I'm going to blop it. Yep, this is really what we're doing. This is it. Blopping on topping. And because we used that pen, the Sharpie, not real worried about going over the edges here, because I'm going to pretty much be able to see them through, or at least have a pretty good idea of where they are when this is done. Just kind of keep going with this, and I'm just I keep spinning my brush. I don't know if you can tell that as I'm doing this. I keep kind of spinning it just so that it's not the exact same pattern of brush tips constantly hitting the background. More of the brown up here, or the gray, sorry, not brown. Down up there, a little bit more. Spinny, spinny, spinny. Spinny, spinny, spinny. We'll get more. Bring it down here. The other thing that you have to remember whenever or that I will remind you frequently, when you're working with the Mod Podge, or really any glue like this, is that it's going to go on white. And it does not dry that way. It dries clear. So knowing the tool, or kind of trusting the process, is also really important in this, of knowing, hey, listen, this is gonna dry clear, and yeah, it's gonna have this mica powder in it, but everything that is opaque white here is actually going to be clear. And I'm trying, you can tell I'm trying not to go like wildly over the edges, but I'm not super worried about it. I'm just not really stressing because we're going to fill all of that in really nicely too. And it makes it look really finished. Because it means that the sky is, of course, going behind the mountains, going behind the tree, which of course it would be. Let's keep going here. I've made a mess of this. See if there's any. Check your edges. Check your edges. Check your edges. Check your top edge. Oh, I missed the top. Yeah, I did miss the top. Oh no, wait, that's actually wood. That's going to be brown. I did not miss a top edge there. There we go. And now I'm just kind of going through in these parts over here where it's already starting to dry. I'm just barely touching with the top of the brush to get some, what I think is cool texture. Kind of a look to it. Popping some of the air bubbles also as I do this, because I really would prefer there not to be a ton of air bubbles. It's not that big of a deal if there are. But I'd rather there not be, and so I'm using this to also pop them. And this is also where now I can start to look at it. There, places I want there to be more blue, or there are places I want there to be more gray. Was that gray enough? Do I want something even darker than this? I don't in this case. This is really actually pretty much what I wanted this to look like. I love it when a plan comes together. All right. All right. So now that needs to dry, obviously, before we do anything too crazy. But it doesn't mean we're at like some sort of standstill, because we can do the water down here, which isn't touching any of this. And then we can start working on other parts of the owl. There's lots of stuff that we can keep going. So what we're going to do now is jump down here to the water. That's what I'm going to do. So let me go ahead and put these back in the water, my actual water. Grab another paintbrush. I held this back for the water. This is Intensive Sparkle Blue, and I wanted it to kind of hit this water here. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this mica, and I am, in this case, just going to stick it straight down in the jar. Carefully bring it out. I got mica on my brush. And now I am going to brush my water down. And we'll do, technically the proper order of operations would be to do the mountains first before this, but that's all right. Not that big of a deal. All right, we're going to get underneath. Again, I'm trying not to go like super over the edge, but I'm just not going to worry if I go into the tree some. Okay, and we'll let that dry. So we have some water down there. And now we just kind of start jumping on the next part of this. I'm going to go ahead and do the mountain down there. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on the mountain. It's dry, and I mean, it's still pretty wet, but it's fine. It'll be just fine. First thing I'm going to do before I go down there is just grab, I've got a little, I love these guys, watercolor pencil, watercolor pen. I'm just going to do a little extra green here. Not worrying too much about that. All right, put that aside. Now let me grab a nice little, let me find the right brush for the job. Right brush for the job. I'm going to grab this little guy here. I'm going to go with the same Mod Podge that's over here. I'm just not going to grab the blue. And it really wouldn't matter because blue and yellow make green. So it wouldn't be that big of a deal if we did. I say that a lot, but it's appropriate. And let's do, this is blackish green. I use this all the time. It's really good for things that are in the distance. It's good to give stuff some depth. So blackish green. So I'm going to grab, again, just because it's such a little amount of space that I'm doing this in, I'm going to go ahead and get the Mod Podge on my brush and just very gently stick it in here and get some. There we go. Get some. Now, trying very hard not to smear any of that water, which is still pretty wet, still quite wet. All right, get a little bit more of this. A little bit more glue. Now what we'll do is find the edge of the mountain. There we go. And this is actually going to give it some texture and actual, not just visual depth, but it's going to have actual physical depth because this is now raised. In fact, I'm going to use this kind of loop of glue here to push it up and make the edge of the mountain. All right, let that dry. We move on. And we'll do layers, probably not on the sky, depending on what it looks like, but that's probably it for the sky. But a lot of the rest of this gets additional build-up layers. All right, so the next thing we want to do is let's move on to the wood. Let's move on to the trees. And I'm going to start on this one up here. So I need to grab a good brown or black for that. There is a really nice brown that I love called Coffee. Here it is. Ta-da-da, Coffee. So I'm going to grab that. You could absolutely do this with, this is acrylic washable paint. You could also paint this in with acrylics. There's no reason that that wouldn't work. You could also give this more time to dry and do this with watercolors, but it would need to be completely dry, and the watercolor isn't going to completely cover this up. You'd probably need to paint it white and then do watercolor on top of that. But again, there are lots of options with kind of how you can accomplish the look. There's markers, like I said, all kinds of different stuff here. We're going to go with the mica powder option just because I tend to really enjoy that. And did not need all of this blue, as you can see, for the sky. I'll just use it in something else. And we are basically out of brown. This is empty. That's a bummer. That's unfortunate. So we'll pull, oh, look, a new coffee. Dun, 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 it's another coffee. Okay. Feast or famine, feast or famine. There we go. Let's start with that. Okay, here we go. Let's do this. Get a little one here. I'm going to start way up here at the top. And I'm going to use the most saturated. Kind of draw a line. And I also want to make sure I get the top of this. Do that. Hey, that's my hair. No, it's not. It's something else. Would not have surprised me if it was my hair. I don't know how much you can see me, but I am on top of this so that I can see the lines underneath well enough. And try to pull this out so it looks less like brush strokes and more like wood grain, but we'll come back with more. In a bit as well. Getting the edge, getting the edge, getting the edge. Let me get rid of that. There's a lump of the glue right there, and it'll dry and just not look as good. So that's the first layer. You can see, if you get really close to this, you can see some blue of the sky through it. You can see some brush strokes. It's okay. This is just the first layer. What we do at this point is just accept that that's where it is, and that's part of the process. And now you let it dry so that it can be finished. Just kind of understand and trust the process. And now what we do is move on to the next part. Oh, except I want to do this. And so what I need to do, those branches, is enough glue. The way I do this, I mean, again, you could do this with standard acrylics, which is way more, I think, probably traditional, and that is totally cool. Or you can do this with the kind of mixed media approach here. But I'm making sure there's enough glue on here that I can really draw with it and leave behind a raised line. So I pre-mixed some over in my tray. And now I'm just dragging these lines on top of where I'd already drawn the branches. Let's go ahead and do this one. And I'm barely, I'm not even touching. My brush is not touching the surface of the painting. What's touching is just the paint that's kind of hanging off or hanging onto the end of my brush. But the brush itself really isn't even, ooh, right there it did, and it got too thick, really isn't even touching because it would be too likely to smear if it did. So it takes a little extra time, a little extra patience to do this, but I think it looks cool. Okay, so now we'll let that dry. So now, oops, I stuck my finger in the water down here. It's okay. Now we're going to jump down and we're going to do this tree. So we're going to do the same thing again. And I do like to kind of build up an edge where edges are. That's one of the reasons I like using the mica powder and Mod Podge, because it does really make these very multi-dimensional, man, that sounds, you're going to get sucked into a wormhole. Multi-dimensional paintings, paintings with texture, paintings you can touch. And we just keep doing this. Making sure I get the edges, 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 edges. Gotta make sure. Oh, slung. And again, as you get to the feet here, it can be real tempting. And I say this because I am fighting it within myself, uh, to try to keep it all between the little toes. But you don't need to do that because we're going to come back and we're going to do the little toes. So you don't have to keep this perfectly in line there. And again, if you're seeing some blue shining through, blue 22, don't worry about it. Just keep on moving on because we're going to come back to this later. Biggest thing is to get this done. Let it get a little dry in. There we go. Back up here. And that needs to dry more before I can do anything with it effectively. Okay, yep, it does. Let's see how much I can do here on the edges. Oh, that's nice. It's very white. I don't know how much you can tell, but very white on the edges there. It needed to dry just a little bit, and now able to darken those edges some. All right, so now all that basically just needs to dry some. And now the fun part, we're going to start on the actual owl himself. And then, like I said, we'll come in and start filling in some of this other stuff. So first things first, we kind of just need a nice background for the owl. We got to kind of decide what, actually, no, I was going to say decide what his body looks like. But let's do some details on him here really quickly so we know what we're dealing with. I want this guy to, let's see here. I want this to have the big cycle things here in our cycles. Go ahead and do this. We'll go ahead and give him some eyelids. Pupils, not bad. You know we want that. That's a no-brainer. I really like the smaller one. I gave like a little, he's got like a little beard. And I like that. So we're going to go with the beard. I like that. So we'll keep that there. We'll do something here. We will, see, he also had a lighter area down here. So we'll do that. There we go. That's a good outline. Good enough. And then we also want the feathers. We have ways of making it talk. No. So we're going to do that. And then that. And that. And that. And that is very nice. Oops. Hi, you're wet. This one's really close to dead as it is too, so I'm going to keep using it to draw these little feather outlines. There we go. And I killed it. Bam. Where's my tea? Right here. All right, so we have some feathers togethers. That, I think, is pretty much what I wanted. Yep. So let's decide what color this apple is going to be now. I haven't done that yet. Let us take, we have all these lovely colors right here that we could use. I think the first thing I want is to lighten him up just a little bit. So let me see if I've got, oh, there's silver white. Some silver white. That is junked at this point. Ooh, that's still wet. Do not just grab your painting randomly. That is useful, but useful for what we've already done. So I'm going to get myself some fresh so that I can use it on just the owl. This one is fine. It's got a little bit of leftover white dried in it, but I'll use it. I'm going to go ahead and use a gloss luster. I'm going to keep going with the Mod Podge because I love painting this way. Pouring it straight from a jar. A jug, actually. It's a gallon jug of it. There we go. Okay. Hey, I was looking for this. I just found my dimensional magic glue that I was looking for. I have something to use that on. All right, so we're going to take this silver white, and I'm going to do what I was doing before of get some just straight from the container. I'm going to start up here on his head. Trying really hard to keep it all in this kind of general area and just mix it with that little bit of glue. So I'm getting this really gummy kind of glue solution. Get a little bit more. Now let's go ahead and paint this. And again, first layer, yep, you can see some blue through. Yep, you can see some of the brush strokes. We're not going to worry about it right now too much. We're going to get this first layer down. I want this to be on the face. And as before, you know, staying in the lines, but not totally. I'm taking this a little bit over the line. Well, right at the line, really. I'm using the glue to essentially draw a line that you can also feel. And I'm trying to keep it right on the existing line as much as possible. Now we're going to try to draw a little bit more. I actually want to make these. Just going to go ahead and do it. Make these three-dimensional. I could wait, but this actually helps me later, I find. Getting a little bit of glue and a little bit of mica powder. And then popping this down on the line. Okay. Not bad. All right, we'll just kind of let that do its thing for a couple. Again, dry, dry. Do you want to go ahead and try to keep this going in a proper direction? That's a big thing, is try to get your brush strokes, you know, going kind of sort of in the direction that, like, let's say here, in this case, that feathers would be. And it will help later. I like that. When we actually get to more detail, even more detail here. Put a little bit more of this glitter on top of that. Really, that blue is just seeing through. So I just took some straight mica powder and kind of put on top of it, so that maybe I don't have to do as many layers here. But I'll still have to do more than one. Okay, so we got that. Now I want to do something pretty similar down here. And this is a little dangerous because this stuff above is still really wet, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And I'm gonna grab a little bit of the existing brown that I had, and I'm just gonna use a little bit of that mixed in here. More. Notice I'm taking the brush only in one direction now, and that is, again, so that this looks more like feathers. All right, we're just going to leave that. We know we're going to come back. We're going to do another layer. It's the way it's going to be. Put a little bit right here. Just kind of fill in between some places where I might not get the true feather layer. Okay. I'm going to reuse this brush, so I'm going to rinse it a little bit. And of course, I have this lovely tablecloth down, not a tablecloth, old sheet. And I'm just going to wipe off my brush on the old sheet. All right, so while all of that is drying, and it's real thin, so it's going to dry pretty quickly, I'm going to jump up here and do these cool little feathers that are up at his eyes. And to get a little bit more color down, let's make this dude colorful for one thing. So let me get my brush a little wet, and I'm going to get some red from my tempera. So I'm with tempera cakes here and getting some red on my brush. And that's really kind of all I wanted to do with it. Just get some red down. And then I do have some really nice red mica. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to this one that's kind of messed up here, because it's fine if it gets a little blue in it. And if it turns a little purple, I don't care. If it's got a little brown in it, it goes a little dark red, I don't care at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and just use this. You could certainly, pour fresh or use this stuff that's fresh, but I'm just not that concerned about it. Gonna stick it straight in here, get a little bit, and then let's go ahead, and that's what I'm gonna use probably to paint this whole feather. Okay. Now I'm just gonna do the other one. Same thing. It's a little harder for me because I am a righty. Okay. And we'll leave that as it is. I don't love, let's see, there we go. I knocked that back in. That's fine. Let's just let that dry. It's going to be a little bit more red, but I like the texture of it, so I want it to dry now. You can tell I'm not necessarily going for reality anymore with this lovely creature. He is going to be colorful instead. And with that in mind, let's move down to these feathers. So we're going to leave this alone for a few, let some of this stuff dry. It's a good idea so that when we come back to it, we're not smearing anything all over the place. So we're just going to leave it alone, let it dry for a minute, and we're going to move down to the body and these feathers instead. And so now I get to decide what feather colors I'm going to use down here. I think probably we'll end up with some of the red, maybe some orange. Ooh, yeah, maybe some orange. I like orange. You can tell that's actually what one of the other ones looked like that I did as a knockoff, a recreation. I think recreation is probably knockoff. Pardon me, I'm yawning. Isn't quite what we're going for. Gold yellow. It's a recreation. I like knockoff. Let me grab some more water. Let's grab some sparkle mauve into it here. Anything else? Yellow, orange, sparkle mauve, red. That's a lot of colors. I feel like we could have one more really cool something happening here. Super flash red bronze. I like that one a lot. Let's bring that over. And then maybe the orange red as well. Why not? Orange red and orange. Okay. All right. That's a lot of colors. We got a lot of colors, a lot of things that are kind of all going to play together here. And then, so we got the brown, we got the gold yellow. We'll play with this. Okay. So we're going to do these guys. Do I even want any tempera? We actually want to start with these. So that's the fun part. We want to start at the very bottom and work our way up. That whole idea of starting in the background and working up so you get the layers, and so you're not smearing things that were in the background. So there are real technical reasons for it also. So we really want to start down here, and we could honestly go ahead and let's do one more because we are starting way down here. You can tell it's pretty much dry. Doesn't take long for this stuff to dry. All right, there we go. We got little feet. I'm gonna go ahead and color those in with the Sharpie because we'll come back and do some more work on them. They're kind of the least of our worries here. Let me just go ahead and Sharpie those babies in. Feet. And then we'll come back with a little black Sharpie. There we go. All right. Ta-da. Done. Okay. So now feathers. Now feathers. So let's do the furthest, let's do the under feather here in, let's do it in the gold yellow. Let's do it in the gold yellow. I'm going to take some of this nice clean glue. Again, I'm going to stick it straight into the container carefully because it can fall off in the container and you end up with just a gloop of glitter colored glue in there. Can you guys hear the birds? They have a lot to say. I'm just filling in at this point. It's like working in a coloring book. Just filling in the lines. All right, and that is that layer of, there you go, that was it. That's all there is to it. So now I do the next layer and I want to differentiate them. So I'm going to use this orangish color. I'm not even going to clean my brush. Yup, I'm not going to clean my brush. Trying really hard not to overlap or smear here, but I'm not going to wait between each one of these for them to dry or we would be here forever. You certainly could if you were doing this at home, but I'm just going to keep on keeping. Okay, so that is, generally speaking, the next layer. And so on top of that, let's do another one. And this time we're going to differentiate pretty thoroughly. And I'm going to do the dark sparkle, the sparkle mauve, but it's much darker. So I'm going to do that on top. So let me grab blue. I want a lot of the sparkle mauve. Ooh, that's a lot. I said a lot. I meant a lot. I am smearing a bit here, which is not necessarily what I wanted to do, but the good news about the mauve is it takes over so much. Mauve, is that the correct pronunciation? Oh, that works. I like it. There we go. A little bit more right here so that it's over the edge. Nice. Okay. Okay, so we let that dry now. Now I do want to clean my brush off because that mauve really would just take over. On top of that, let us do, I'm going to really shake this up some. So we've got those colors. We've got the gold yellow in there. On top of this, I would like to do the red. So we're going to do the red. Oh, crap. I did not want that to happen. So you see that just glumped on there. Some red just kind of fell. The best thing to do is just wait now. I'm not going to try to clean that up. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm just going to keep on keeping and then wait. Because if I try to clean it up right now, things are just going to smear and it's going to get out of control. So the best thing I can do is just go whoops and keep going and come back to it. It will not help if I try to do something with it right now. I mean, I am going to make this the correct shapes. General. Okay, there we go. Red. Let's see. After red, do I want more colors? Yes, I do. I think I want. No, I don't want this. I'm going to save Super Flash Red Bronze. I'm saving that. I will take this orange red, however, and do something with it. I'm going to save the Super Flash Red Bronze, I think, for the wings. These are getting much easier to do because they are getting larger. Okay. And now we're going to go back to the yellow. Get more yellow. I was going to get more glue, but I think I just want more yellow. There's a lump of the orange right there. I'm trying not to get on my brush. Okay. After yellow was this particular orange. All right, and then the last one is that mauve. So we can go back with it. Okay. Doo-doo-doo. He's fun. I like his colors. All right, so let's go ahead and again, that's going to need to dry before we do a whole lot more with it. There's a lot going on there. So we're going to let that dry and let's go ahead. His face is pretty much dry already. But let's go ahead and jump over to the wings. Let's go ahead and do that while we're here. I said I wanted the Super Flash Red Bronze for the wings. And then I'm thinking, let's see, probably this orange red, since I only got to use it once in the body right there. And then it can be some of the wings as well. And that'll give us some nice variety. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to start with the Super Flash Red Bronze, and we're going to put it here in this one. So just go ahead and get some down. And actually, I should have started this one and worked my way forward. So do as I say, not as I do. It's okay. Oh, look how pretty. Look at that. I want more. More. And more. Can't get too many sparkles. All right. That's a good layer. We'll go ahead and do this outer one with it too. And then the one between can be that orange. There we go. And then we're going to do these under feathers, and I'm going to do the same thing with them. I'm just going to use this for the middle one. Let's see if I even need to get any more. I'm all about waste not, want not. So let's see if I can do this with what I have. Okay. Ta-da. Put that aside. Which orange did I say? The orange red. This one. Okay, orange red. That's going to become the middle feather. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, well. Look at that. A few. It happens. Not the end of the world. I dropped someone here. I'm trying to get a bit of, I'm not trying to, I'm going to get a bit of a line here. There we go. That look better. Okay. Now we move on to the other ones. And again, I think really important. I've said this so many times so far. I think we've been at this for an hour and a half now, ish, give or take. We're coming back to do more detail work. And so you really are like setting it and forgetting it. You're getting it done, and then you're moving on to the next part and trusting that we're going to come back and like where you can see the blue sky coming through on some of the branches, where you can see the blue sky coming through on his head. We're going to fix all of that. But right now, we just want to get the layers down, those initial layers. Kind of a coloring book at this point. Okay. So we'll call that the feather. So we've got all of that stuff going on. And now remember, we have one more over here, and you can see it. I don't know how well you still can from your distance, but I can still see it through the sky really effectively. And so we've got the one last feather over here that we want to do. I do want to go ahead and grab that sparkle red bronze back, because that's what we're going to use. And in this case, because it is so on the edge, I'm a donkey on the edge. Shrek, man, love it. We got to be kind of careful. How many times in my life have I said I'm a donkey on the edge? Said that several times in work meetings, and people didn't get it. Like, are you okay? Or they gave me weird looks, and I was like, okay, what the heck, guys? Come on. You've seen Shrek. I know you've seen Shrek. Oh, you're a girl dragon. Sorry. You'll see here I'm stabilizing my arm. I got to do this all the time, man. Um, it's not magic that artists do straight lines or anything. Not like super stable. That's funny on so many levels. Not we don't like have non-shaking hands. I am using this hand to stabilize the other one because I don't want to mess up here. And so I do that a lot. Uh, and so you just kind of have to find things like that work for you. But I have to do this all the time to make this hand, it's not that I'm shaky, but it is hard to keep that effectively in the line. All right. So moving on from that, we got feathers. We got kind of the front. We do need to work on dude's face here. And that's pretty dry. That's dry. My hands are a mess, but that's from other stuff. So he's dry. We can move on and we can work on the face now to get started on what exactly do we want that to look like. And guys, I don't have a clue. I haven't made any decisions about this at all. So I don't know what I want this to look like, but I think if we're going to make his feathers so colorful and fun, I should probably translate some of that up to the face. So I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of that bright fun up to the face as well that we did down here on the body. And now it's just kind of a matter of what I do up there. And we just kind of make those decisions based on what color you want it to be, or you would make those decisions. In this case, I actually have to make up my mind. Oh, horror. Of what I would like it to be. So I'm going to start with this little piece here under his little chinny chin chin. And, I think I'm going to go yellow. I like that yellow and the way it pops. So I think that yellow that I did down here, I'm going to bring up and just do again. I did clean my brush. I'm using the same brush. I just use the same brush over and over and over again. So I'm going to use that same exact brush again. You could use something smaller if you wanted to. I don't necessarily think it's necessary here. And I'm going to pull out, it's the gold yellow is what I used. Again, you could fill this in with acrylics. Oops, I think I knocked my microphone. I'm so sorry. Acrylics, you could fill this in with a marker. You could fill this in with, honestly, because of the color, here you could use watercolors really well because the watercolor would play on top of this really effectively. It's usually good if you're going to use watercolors to paint everything the same color first, to like the same white. So I would go over this again white, just so that it does the exact same thing on the exact same surface. Because if I were to try to use watercolor here, it's going to do one thing when it hits the glue residue versus when it hits the canvas. And so you want to go ahead and just, basically treat the canvas and paint all of this white if you were going to use watercolor, which I do sometimes. And I'm going to come back to the watercolor and the tempera here eventually because I always do. But right now I'm going to keep going because I really like the texture and the three dimensionality of it. And this is something that's available to you to do at the studio above the clouds. So I'm going to keep going with the glue and the mica powder. And so I just get a little bit. Again, I'm going in really small bits, not a lot even of glue on this at this point, and just got it straight from the container. And that's so that I don't waste much. And now I'm going to use this just to fill in my little chin piece here. I don't know what you call this on an owl. What is this? Is this a named piece on an owl? A named piece of their anatomy? All right, I'm going to get some more because I want to lay it on thick. This also, this would be a part of the owl that would be really finely feathered. And this helps kind of give that. You'll see as we get the layers and then some of the detail done, you'll see it gives it the illusion of feathers pretty nicely. So there we go. That's it. Bam. So we got that part done. So now we want to do the eye circles. I think for those, what do we want to do for those? I think let's go with some more of the orange. Let's pop those. We'll go with this orange. Same brush, cleaned it because I didn't want any of the yellow coming over in this case. Sometimes, as you all have seen, I don't even clean my brushes in between, but in this case, I am. So now pop here, pop here. And if you wanted this to look very much like a real owl, you could certainly just modify the colors for that. We're going for a bit of a fantasy owl here. There we go. Ta-da. All right, so eyelids. Let's do some of that. No, I was going to say the mauve. Yes, I think we do want the mauve for that. Yes, we do. I do think I want, you're not going to believe this, guys, a different brush. I'm going to go with something a little bit smaller because that's a much smaller territory. We just aren't going to need very much there. So oop. Oop. There we go. Eyelids. Um, we'll go ahead. Trying to decide if I want. Yes, I want to go ahead and do the beak and the pupils. But because I do want those to just be black, I mean, I want them black. Guess what? The Sharpie's coming out. All right, and so I can do that. This is all dry, so that's good. One again, it's just a stability thing. I have a tendency to use like a pinky finger. I have a finger I'll use and kind of put it on here for some extra stability, and then I'm going to hold my arm also for extra stability because I don't want it to go anywhere that I don't want it to go. And I'm going to fill in the pupils. Oh, the eyes with some black. Of course, this does not work, the whole pinky stability, if the background is wet. And boy, have I made that mistake before. Pop that bad boy right down and then go, uh-oh. So be aware of that. All right, so I'll go ahead and fill you in some. And we'll put more down here, but I just want it to be very clearly not gray, not sort of kind of black, but I want this to be black. And this is also where, whoops, my eyes are funky. I make corrections for that. I got some glue on that. There we go. Looks a little funky, but that gives us the start to what we need. And I will get a better, let's see, this one's white, so we're going to use that eventually. That is a white Sharpie. But now I want, that's blue. I don't want that. I don't want that blue. I don't, well, that's another white. We'll put that over there. I'm looking for this very specific, these are creative markers, which are a little bit different kind of Sharpie. And I have these all over the studio and I use them all the bloody time because I love them. Okay. All right. Ta-da! So I'm going to put these aside. And now we can start going in and doing some extra detail. We're going to fill in, you know, I talked about how we weren't worrying that we could see the sky through up here on the branches or anything. Now's when we're going to go through and start working on all of that. And then we'll come back and do the finishing touches on the owl. Right now, we want to ignore that the owl exists. I know there's a real temptation to keep working it, but it is very wet still, and we just want to ignore it exists for a couple. And move back up to some of these corrections and fill-ins while it does its thing. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm moving some stuff out of my way. It is starting to stick to the counter some because, of course, as I said, we want to make sure we do our edges. And so all the edges are painted. And so it sticks to this a little bit. So every now and then I also like to pick it up, or else you get to the very end and you're like, oh, wait a second, we're not going anywhere. Okay, so let's start up here. Do you want to be very aware that all of this is wet? There are multiple times I have multiple shirts that have paint on the front of them from where I've leaned over and ended up bleeding right onto my work. So you do want to be really aware of that as you're doing this. All right, so I'm going to go back to kind of a big brush this time. I'm not doing anything. Oh, this brush has gotten pretty destroyed, but that doesn't really matter for what we're about to do. We are gathered here today. I'm going to go to this really messy glue that we have up here that's got some brown in it, and I'm just going to come back up to what we were working on up here. Move you just a little bit. I've got this pre-mixed brown. This stuff's starting to get kind of thick because, of course, it was like it's an hour and 42 minutes since I started this. So it's been, a solid hour and a half since this has been down. It is, in fact, starting to get kind of thick and dry, but you've still got plenty of time. All right, so now I'm just going to put this on. Paint the edge, paint the edge, paint the edge. This has brown and even a little bit of this gray in it. Heck, it even has a little bit of blue in it just by proxy. And again, because of what we're doing with it, it's okay. Now, however, we do have to worry about the edge of the feather just a little bit more. Remember that the white, and this is where this gets really important because you're like, all of that white's going to go clear. So everything on here that you see as white is going to dry totally clear. And so this is that where I talked earlier about trusting the process, trusting the materials. This is definitely part of that. Because this is where you really start to see that, what is that chalky, weird, that's not the color I want. It's not going to look like that when it dries. All right, so we do that, and literally that's it. That is it. We're going to let that dry now. And now we're moving back down to this one. I'm getting some of this mica with Mod Podge. It's mostly brown with a little bit of gray and even a little blue in it. It really is just kind of the mess that's here. And a little watered down. And here we go. I'm just going to fill in. Remember that I built up the edges on this when I was doing it, and that really helps because now we're just kind of filling in between. And because this is slightly watered down, just a little bit runny, it'll kind of fill in. Oh, I got to be careful around this feather. Hang on. It'll kind of fill in between. All right, there we go. So let's do this one. And I'm being way more aware of where the edges of the feathers and feet and everything are than I did the first layer, of course, because now I don't want to overlap, at least not as much. If I do a little bit, I'm just not going to get too upset about it. But I really would prefer not to, like I just did on that one little toe right there. Look at that. Bam. I just cleaned it. Look at that. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And then make sure you're going over the edges. I'm gonna try to get between these toes as much as I can. Okay, and now we really do just kind of let that dry again. What we can do is I'm going to go down here and do some detail on this. And that detail looks like in the mountains in the background. I'm really just not even going to clean this brush. That's what I just used to do all of this stuff. All the tree. And I'm just going to kind of pop some on here. There we go. And that will give me a little extra depth, extra color, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to do that. Now, I did clean it this time. I cleaned it. Now what I'm going to do is down here, I'm going to add a little bit more. I am going to take the clean. Oh, you can't see me. I'm taking the clean instead of the dirty. I'm calling it dirty now. Glue, and I'm going to get a little bit of this light blue on it, just a little, because I like the sparkle that's down here. And I'm going to go ahead and do another layer on top so that it's not just one blue, but so that we have two back there. And there's even a little bit of brown came over from the mountain and from the branches, and that's okay. That's fine. We don't care about that. That actually is perfectly fine for water, because how often do you see perfectly blue water? So we're fine with that. All right. So we're going to pull you back up again. You can already see we're getting a pretty cool looking, I mean, you can already really see that that's a pretty cool looking owl. So now, while we're still waiting for him to dry, because we got more work to do on his face, but I really want to make sure that I'm not messing him up. So I'm really waiting for him to dry. I'm going to go back to these branches. And if you looked at this original, I put on some like moss growth and stuff like that, or lichen on the tree. So I can go back and do that right now. So what I'll do now is to do that on the tree is decide what color it's going to be. I don't think I'm going to go with as deep a black as I did there. I think I'm going to use this gray that I already have. I mean, I've already got it right here. So waste not, want not. So I'm going to use the mica that doesn't, or not the mica, the Mod Podge that doesn't have a whole bunch of stuff in it. Get some gray. Let me just pop that over there. Nice and thick. And I do want this like really thick. Kind of silly. But I do want this super thick. So I'm actually going to mix it up. If you'll notice, I'm mixing up like a thick paste kind of the powder and the glue. And now I will literally just go in here and all the places I want that to be, I'm just going to kind of hit with it. So places that maybe you have a lot of blue still coming through where it didn't cover up nicely, that's a good place for this. Anywhere where you just want there to be a little bit more visual interest. Over here where we're kind of just a lot of brown for a long time, we can take it over the edge. It's nice for places that look like they have little knots. It's really good to do that and give it that texture, give it kind of that knotted look. I don't know if you guys can hear the rain in the background, but it is pouring rain, like pouring rain right now. It just really started. We need it. All right, so that gives us something interesting to look at there as much as anything, honestly. That'll dry and be kind of cool. A little bit more there. Maybe even some here. There we go. I like that. Okay, so I'm gonna put that away. Let's go back to his face now. I think we're in a good shape. It's still a little wet, but we won't mess with that. I think we're fine. We're good. All right, so we're good now. I do want this to continue with the white, that white. And so that it is enough, we need to put another layer on. So let's go ahead and get, I'm going back to kind of the square head. Get plenty of this. There's a lot of the blue background showing through up here. And I could also, like, one of the things you can do here is paint him with like the white acrylic first and then do this on top. I obviously did not, but that is an option. There we go. Yeah, I dropped some. We'll do a little bit here, and a little bit here. Wow, it is raining. It's lovely. The frogs have started. Oh, frog song. If you can hear me over the rain. All right, and then I'm going to go back to the Skinny Mini here, the little one, little brush. And I want to work on this just a little bit here. So I'm going to get a little bit more. And I'm going to make a very, very light brown, which is what this was. And then, not that light. Not that light. That was too light. That was too light. I'm taking some of the pre-mixed brown that I had over here. And then I'm going to take, whoops, some of the white. And I'm going to mix them. That's better. It's more like it. And there we go. I'm again laying it on pretty thick, particularly at the edges. Because I want this to give the illusion of feathery edges. And then I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to lift up my brush before I hit any of the white. And I am pulling that up, and that's going to just give us, like I said, kind of an illusion of a feathery edge. Yeah. Do 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 do. All right. Next thing I want to do, how dry is this? Not dry enough. Never mind. Wanted to come in and do some more work. The feathers, obviously, here need some more work. This one's still pretty darn wet. So we're not going to do anything with it yet. This one, however, I think I can go ahead and fill in some more. And so what we would do is go back to the collar, which again is that flash, sparkle flash red. Try not to drip anywhere. I dripped a lot. Needed to use up some that was on here, so I'm going to go ahead and use it on the front one. I'm trying not to get rid of any of the nice, there's like some good texture in here that I really don't want to go away. So I'm trying not to get rid of any of it while I do this. And succeeding, I might add. Okay. And now is when in the night, this is the point in a paint event. We're about 2 hours in. We would have take a break whenever you bloody well want to. You can take breaks anytime you want. But this is definitely one of the points where we would be like, okay, let's take 15 or 10, because it really isn't going to take very long. But this stuff needs to dry before we can really move on to any additional meaningful detail, because there's just too much risk at this point of messing something up. The parts I need to paint over, for the most part, aren't even dry yet. I do think I can do these guys here in just a second. As you can see, I'm going ahead and doing the beak and the eyes. Remember, these were done with Sharpie. And now I'm just doing some of this on top because this is gloss, which means that it'll give them a nice shine. And if I wanted to, I could even add some additional sparkle into it. I'm not going to. All right, before we stop for a break, I will go ahead, get back to the one paintbrush that I want. Where are you? I just put them all back in here and I lost it. There we go. Goodness, not that many paintbrushes. That's not the one I want. Apparently there are that many paintbrushes. Where are you? There you are, my friend. Okay, there we go. That's the one I wanted. We'll grab some more of the Mod Podge and the mica, and we're just going to put another nice layer of the red. And again, you could do this with acrylics, you could do this with tempera, you could paint this white first and do it with watercolors. I just really like mica and Mod Podge. I like the way they play together. All right, so this is where we are at 2 hours from the time I started recording, and I pretty much started this immediately upon recording. So this is where we are. I think he's pretty darn cute. He definitely lacks some detail that we're going to come back in and fill in and do stuff with. But like I said, he has got to dry now. This guy's got to dry. Otherwise, we're just going to mess up everything we've done. So what we do now is we take a break and then come back to this in, like I said, about 10-15 minutes. So, grab a beverage, make some tea. There's a kitchen up here, a full kitchen. Go for a walk, go out to the garden, meditate, any of those kind of whatever. But take about, 10, 15 probably if we were in class just for giggles, just so that everybody could have a nice break and get a snack and all that kind of stuff. I'll make some coffee or tea up here. We have a little make your own soda, one of those soda stream machines. And then we'll come back to it and do the details. So I'm not going to do that today. I'm not going to do that in this live session. I'm going to stop the stream. So I'll end the stream and then I'll show you what this looks like with those details. So I'm not going to make you like hang out for 15 minutes. Not that would make anybody do anything, but you'll kind of see where this goes from here to the next stage in the detail and in the drawing, so that we get to something that looks a little bit more, like I said, that's the original that we're starting from. And then we're so far there. All right. So this particular painting event is coming up at the studio, and I'll probably do it more than once, but this one is coming up at the studio above the clouds. I can't remember the exact date. It would probably be awesome if I did. It's www. Like, you need to hear that part of it. I sound like a boomer. Serendipitysellers.com. Serendipitysellers.com. And there are classes and events at the studio. And this is one of many classes and events at the studio that you could come up and make your own personalized owl that fits with your home decor or with whoever you're going to gift it to, or your favorite collars or whatever like that. But hope to see you up here at the studio, and I will show you the next steps of this after it takes a little bit of time to dry. So you see what it looks like when it goes from here to finished. So thanks so much for hanging out at the studio above the clouds with Serendipity Sellers. I will see you all next time. Have a great one, folks.